From the mid to late 2000s, the Renault brand wasn't all that popular in South Africa. It was only in 2013, when the 4th generation Clio launched, that things started looking up for the brand. Well, now 3 years after the international debut of the 5th generation Clio, we finally get to drive it in South Africa. Let's do this. So what drew many people to Renault showrooms? Well, it was the looks. The 4th generation Clio was an absolutely stunning car, and the same can be said of this one. But some of you out there might be looking and thinking, this car looks very similar to the old vehicle. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So overall, you can still see that it's a Renault Clio, but just a newer Renault Clio. But for me, what I absolutely love is the rear of the vehicle. This new light design, it looks a bit more softer, but the vehicle looks prettier as a whole, and it looks more mature. And of course, the rear doors are still signature Clio, where you look to yourself and you think, where's the door handle? But it's right there by the back window. But it's still a nice quirk that Renault has, and I'm glad that they've left that in there. Let's jump inside. And I can tell you one thing, where some might feel that they didn't spend enough time on the design on the outside of the vehicle, the inside of the car is where the biggest changes have happened. In fact, I'm struggling to find something about this interior that I don't like. The materials used are very nice. We've also got this lovely 9.3-inch infotainment screen. The standard one is 7 inches, so this is an optional extra. And it's an optional extra even if you've got the top of the range vehicle. This will cost you 15,000 Rand for this option. Personally, I think it's a little bit too much money for a car such as this. But at the same time, it still does work very nicely. Overall, I really do like how this cabin feels. The seats feel great, and it feels quite trendy, much like the city that we're in, lovely Cape Town. This car really does fit in a city like this. Now, a very important factor for a car like this is the boot space it offers. Looking at this boot, it actually looks quite small, but then you notice that you can do this. And interestingly, this boot space offers 390 liters. A Polo, on the other hand, offers 350. So that means that I can do the... No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. One thing that we actually wanted to mention about the previous model was its engine size. Now, it had a 900cc engine, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it was adequate. But now people who drive this generation of Renault Clio can say, I have a 1-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It produces 74 kilowatts and 160 Newton meters. But I can tell you that this car is actually quite zippy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Cape Town and the roads are small, but it actually does have a decent amount of torque. In-gear acceleration is a huge pleasure. Overtaking, getting about the city is not going to be a problem with this car. The only thing is, first gear, when you get on the power, there is a slight lag, and then around about 2,750 RPM, that is when peak torque happens. But the result of that is, even now, I've got my foot flat and the car does lag a bit. Another thing that you need to note is the fact that you cannot get an automatic gearbox throughout this entire range. Obviously, there might be changes later on in time, but for now, it's only manual. In terms of overall driving experience, the Clio does feel very nice on the road. The steering is quite lighter compared to the previous model, and I think majority of people are going to appreciate that because it does mean that the car is easier to drive. For those of you who are a bit more enthusiastic, the car isn't as dynamic as it used to be, but it's still quite a pleasure to drive. It's good news for those of you who did not like the bumpy ride that was in the Clio 4. Fitted with 17 inches, the Clio 4 did feel quite hard on the road. Interestingly, this car also uses 17-inch wheels, but the ride is much softer. And as a result of that, it does make for a more pliable ride on the road. And that is, of course, a very good thing. Overall, I must say I'm quite impressed with this new Clio. Those of you who have been waiting for this model, you will not be disappointed. Yes, it's not a perfect car, it's probably a bit too snug on the inside. The question is, we do live in South Africa, so is it as good as the Polo? Funny enough, the new generation Polo is currently being launched to the day as we are driving this vehicle. Obviously, it's not going to play at the same time, but it's quite interesting that the competition is being launched at the exact same time, which means that at some point we are going to need to do a comparison. So, which one is better? Well, I have not driven that new Polo yet, and I have driven this one, and this one is very good. But that being said, the Polo is a fan favorite in our country. So I'm going to leave that question a bit open-ended until we do our comparison test. But for those of you who are interested in this car specifically, I can tell you that it is really, really a pleasure to drive.